US-backed coalition says it's all set to free the Syrian city of Raqqa from the shackles of Islamic State terrorists. Raqqa was taken by Islamic State 3 years ago. Allied forces fighting the terror group say they are planning to launch their final assault on Sunday. Take a look.
The ongoing civil war in Syria has left much of the country in ruins ever since it began in 2011. Intense airstrikes and battle on the ground have displaced hundreds and thousands of civilians, making it the deadliest multi-sided armed conflict of the century so far. It was 3 years ago that the hardline Islamic State terror group chose the remote oil-rich city of Raqqa as the center of its self-styled caliphate. The town, where Sunni Arabs make up the majority, has since been the stronghold of the group. However, the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have taken over several parts of Raqqa after launching an assault against the Islamic State in June. A senior US official in the international coalition fighting the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria had said they had seized about 45% of Raqqa. Battle now has reached its final stages and the Islamic State is confined to a small area in the city. Syrian army and its allies have also reached the city of Deir al-Zor and have since then pushed the Islamic State fighters towards the border with Iraq. The Syrian army also says it has encircled Islamic State fighters in the city of Al-Mayadin, which is also one of the terrorists' last strongholds in Syria. Bureau Report, WION.
All right, we'll be talking about what exactly is happening in Syria and how long will it take now that they've announced that this is indeed the final assault on the terrorists over there. Joining me live here in the studio is Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former Indian diplomat. He's been in Syria as well. Daniele Pagani is WION's correspondent. He's also joining me live right now. Daniele, if I can start by asking you, what is it that you're gathering from your sources on the ground? This is the final assault, but how long could it take? And how much is the area in which the Islamic State is still has a strong presence within Raqqa?
So the area is, we can say that it's nearly 10% of the city. Is just 1.5 neighborhood within the old city of Raqqa. When it comes to how long will it take, we have to divide this last bit of offensive in two parts. One part will be defeating the Islamic State fighters, believed to be 800 to 900, anyway less than 1,000. That will not take very long. We are talking about weeks, which in terms of these kind of operations is not a long time. It might seem long to us, but it's not very long. When it comes to make the city safe and to clear all the booby traps and the IEDs and whatever explosive has been left behind the retreating ISIS, which is something they always do, then it could take even months. So that will be perhaps the most problematic and the riskiest part, both for the Syrian Democratic Forces and for the civilians who are still trapped in Raqqa. Let's not forget that we have sources saying that nearly 40 to 45,000 civilians could still be trapped within the area where they are currently fighting. So this is what comes out from the ground right now when it comes to the military side of this offensive.
Right. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, the battle in Raqqa has been a grueling one. There has been urban warfare coupled with airstrikes. There's too much destruction, Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. Many say that Raqqa has been sacrificed in order to defeat the Islamic State. How do you look at this entire situation?
I think it's partly true. Raqqa was Caliphate's capital, and it was used as a staging ground for various brutalities that you mentioned. By the same token, it became a demonstration for defeating ISIL. So air raids, sniper attacks, artillery attacks to flatten the city were de jure. Right. They were done thing. And for the 3.5 years that Raqqa has been outside the control of the Syrian government, I think first al-Nusra and then ISIL have had to bear the brunt of fighting.
Right.
Particularly since the Russians joined with their air power, Raqqa has suffered devastating attacks. And it's fair to say that it's being punished demonstrably to make sure that that ISIL knows that there is some comeuppance.
Right, right. Daniele, coming back to you, talking about ISIS now in Raqqa and the fact that most of the territory is not under their control anymore. But if you look at the recent attacks, they've still managed to launch some of the most deadly attacks, even with their presence diminished to just a few square kilometers of area. How is ISIS able to do that?
Well, Sana, here we have to, I would say, open a little bit our history books. I would like to remind our viewers that Salafi jihadism, so the offensive way of combating jihad, the holy war, is not something new. It has been around for nearly 30 years now, and it had survived the war on terror, the offensive in Afghanistan, 2 Gulf Wars. Why? Because it is an idea. The caliphate was just one of the many shapes that this idea can take. So ISIS was one, Al-Qaeda was one, Boko Haram is another one. All the Sunni terrorist organizations, self-defining themselves, Salafi jihadists, they fight for an idea. So yes, now they are definitely, the Islamic State is definitely militarily on the back foot, and this is absolutely something which is undeniable, and it's hurting them very much because they do not have operating bases and they cannot get money out of those places. Taxes, through selling oil, through smuggling human beings and weapons. So that's the problem. But the idea is still very much alive. And let me also tell you that ISIS is now way more global than it was before. Be it because there is a real connection of people traveling from the Middle East and going back to some other countries, or be it because their brand, their idea has become global. So this is how they keep themselves alive. They rely on an idea which has been very much alive for the last at least 30 years.
Ambassador Sachdev, looking at the present situation, what does, let's say this offensive is successful and they are defeated, the ISIS in Raqqa, what does it mean then for the Syrian civil war, and what next for Bashar al-Assad?
I think the end game begins once Raqqa is overtaken. Of course, as Daniele said, there would be lingering sort of aftershocks.
Right.
But eventually, as an organized resistance, as an occupying power, ISIL's days are numbered. It would be able to launch sporadic attacks
in Syria.
In Syria as well as outside.
Yeah.
But I think the days that it could summarily behead people and demonstrate its military strength, even armor and anti-aircraft guns, are gone.
Right.
The end game that I hinted at would then be how to create a Shia crescent, as it is called, all the way from Iran to Beirut in Lebanon, comprising of Iran, Iraq, Syria and Lebanon. This is likely to be contested.
Okay.
And the fact that Raqqa lies on Euphrates or Furat River is at the crossroads of this crescent is significant. The fact that SDF, which is pro-West Sunni rebel outfit, not allied to this crescent, is taking over Raqqa is also significant. The fact that Idlib campaign has been launched only today with Turkish support by the same SDF shows that they are racing against the clock.
Right, racing against time, yeah.
So all those factors to rewrite the closing chapter, hopefully, on Iraq-Syria zone gains prominence now.
Gains momentum.
And the political solution or reconstruction part would become increasingly important.
Yeah. Daniele, talking about that, we've seen what Raqqa has gone through after Mosul. How much importance do you think, and when, because for Bashar al-Assad, now the next step is, of course, reconstruction, making sure the civilians who've been used as human shields all this while, they feel safe and secure, to get their lives back to normal, which, of course, they haven't seen what normal is for the past so many years in Syria, be it Iraq or Syria. Give us a sense of what's next in terms of rebuilding the infrastructure in all these places in Syria which have seen so much death and destruction and devastation over the years.
I would, Sana, define it very easily as a Herculean, nearly impossible task. I say nearly impossible, even though it will be done, somehow it will be done. The cost, the amount of money that you need obviously needs the entire international community to pitch in. The International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, they need to pitch in, and they need to absolutely ingest a huge amount of immediate liquid money into Syria in order to reconstruct. We are talking about areas of a country which was a developed country, not a poor country. We can discuss if it was or if it wasn't a democratic country, absolutely, but when it comes to infrastructure, Syria was a fairly well-equipped country, so rebuilding all of that will be immensely costly. And of course, the Syrian government doesn't have those money at all right now, because a war is tremendously expensive. You need to buy weapons, you need to buy protection, you need to pay the salaries of your soldiers regularly if you want them to fight on your side and not to run into someone else's courtyard and start fighting against you. So one challenge will be materially reconstructing all those areas starting from Raqqa, but many other places that have been completely destroyed. The second, and perhaps even more difficult challenge, will be reconstructing the social fabric of a country. Now you have the entire northern part of Syria controlled, apart from 100 kilometers, controlled by the Syrian Democratic Forces, largely Kurds, Syrian Kurds.
Right.
You have Turks controlling a bit of that part. Then you have tens of thousands militiamen backed by Iran roaming around your country. You have Hezbollah, the Lebanese armed Shia party, in your country. All these actors do not match together. It's nearly impossible to find a way out, to find a peaceful coexistence between all these actors. This will be the challenge, and I see clouds on the horizon, I have to be honest.
All right, that's it then on this edition of the broadcast as far as the discussion on Syria is concerned. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, thanks so much for joining me here and sharing your thoughts with our viewers. I'd also like to thank my colleague Daniele Pagani for his perspective and analysis on this story.